I'm going to present some of the higher and highest states of consciousness and some pointing out instructions so that each of us can directly experience these higher states, especially those states said to be associated with enlightenment and awakening and waking up. And then we're going to explore the profound feelings that go with those states. So you'll have a set of compass points in your own life that you can use for waking up. And that is what will bring us directly to sex. Specifically, the spiritual path known as Tantra, which uses everyday conventional sexuality as a direct path to spirit, a direct path to enlightenment itself. But we're going to take a very specifically integral approach to this issue. So even if you're familiar with Tantra, this version will strike you as quite novel. So let's start with just a little bit of necessary background information, and then we'll jump into the juicy part. We already mentioned relative truth and ultimate truth. Most people live with a conscious knowledge of only various types of relative truth. They're largely completely unaware of ultimate truth. The great traditions universally maintain that this state, the state of knowing only relative truth and not ultimate truth, is actually a fallen world, a world of original sin, an intrinsically alienated world, a world the Buddha maintained was nothing but dukkha, or relentless suffering. This is Plato's cave, where people are stuck watching nothing but shadows on the back of the cave, completely unaware of the great light of reality outside the cave. This is a world both Hinduism and Buddhism call a world of ignorance, of being asleep, of being deeply unaware of one's own truest self and deepest reality. In other words, the typical states of consciousness that most people have are drenched in this ignorance. So virtually all of the most common states that people experience are not ultimate states. They're not eternal, not infinite, not all-inclusive, not enlightened, and not awakened. But by shifting consciousness from being stuck in these lesser relative states and instead finding ultimate or absolute states, which are indeed said to be eternal and infinite and all-embracing, then one can discover for oneself the ultimate ground of being, the radiant sun outside the cave. And that discovery is indeed what is called enlightenment, awakening, satori, the great liberation. The various traditions usually give a breakdown of the major relative states that humans have available, as well as the various ultimate states that they can also realize. A common scheme, which we find in Hinduism, Tibetan Buddhism, and various Western Neoplatonic schools, gives 5 overall major states of consciousness, 3 of which are relative, and 2 of which are absolute or ultimate. We're going to especially be paying attention to the 2 ultimate states, since those are the ones directly connected with enlightenment and awakening. But just for the record, The three relative states are often known as the gross state, the subtle state, and the causal state. An example of the gross state is ordinary waking consciousness with an isolated ego aware of a merely material world and the world that can be seen with the senses. An example of a subtle state is the dream state, where the extraordinary creativity of consciousness produces entire worlds out of nothing. And an example of the causal state is deep dreamless sleep, which most people experience as a type of vast blankness. But the traditions maintain is actually a direct experience of formless, infinite, or spiritual ground. And they maintain that it can be experienced that way by long-term meditators. And there's a good deal of experimental evidence that this is the case. But those are all relative states, which means they're separate from each other. They all exist in time. They're temporal. That is, they come, they stay a bit, and they go. They all have qualities or characteristics, and those all differ from each other. And because none of these states are truly all-inclusive or all-embracing, each relative state excludes the others. You can't, for example, be in the waking state and the deep dreamless state at the same time. So none of them can be the ground of all being. None of them are absolute or ultimate states. The ultimate states are said to be fully and totally one with spirit. They are therefore eternal, infinite, all-inclusive. And we'll see what these terms mean as we go forth. And since most people have not directly experienced these ultimate states, but only have relative states available to them, then most people indeed are not enlightened, not awakened, not self-realized, but rather stumble, numbed, and nearsighted through the fallen world, asleep, ignorant, drenched in dukkha, and often suicidal darkness. But there's an even deeper point to the great traditions. Most people seem to be completely ignorant or unenlightened. They seem to be totally unaware of the infinite and eternal ground of all being, that is their own deepest self and truest condition. And it's true, most people are ignorant. But that ignorance the traditions maintain is an illusion. It's not really real. Rather, the state of enlightenment is not something that's hard to attain. It's actually impossible to avoid. In reality, right here and right now, you are fully enlightened, fully awake, fully realized. This is not something you can create or achieve or attain. Rather, it is your own awareness, just as it is now, that is fully enlightened. As Zen puts it, the everyday mind, just that is the Tao. And this is why the traditions maintain over and over and over again that enlightenment is not something that you can attain. Jesus Christ keeps pointing out that you are already saved. You don't need to be forgiven. You're already, by grace, fully saved. The Buddhist core texts, the Prajnaparamita Sutras, keep repeating time and time again. If you could only realize that enlightenment is unattainable, you would be enlightened. Unattainable is the word they keep using. Enlightenment is unattainable because it's already fully present. You can no more attain enlightenment than you can attain your lungs or acquire your feet.